We are live, live, live. I have Greg Hyatt on tonight. I'm James Collins, Big X Media. Greg. Tonight, we're going to go over some website fundamentals and potentially some onboarding with Big X Media and see how this looks. 20 years of my website design experience being videographer in the military, and I've had a lot of experience with dealing with agencies and graphics and video and photography. And I've never met anyone like Greg, and their prices, their onboarding process has been great to me. So I'm going to have him explain some of that to everybody else tonight to see if he can potentially get you guys onboarded with Big X Media. So take the floor, Greg. Share with us what it looks like. Uh,
Appreciate it, James. Yeah, Big X Media, pretty simple. We help you with your online presence, regardless of what industry you're in. Whether you're in the professional power washing industry, like James has migrated from, or any other industry for that fact. If you have the need and the desire to attract more customers to increase your bottom line of your income, then you certainly need Big X Media. Of course, you can visit us online at bigxmedia.net. Several contact forms across the website to get started on. Hey, book a half-hour call with me. If you got an existing website, let's see what's working, what's not working, and see what we can do to help elevate your online presence.
so I will play maybe let's tabletop here. Let's say I'm a new customer and I bought a domain from GoDaddy or Wix. Let's just stick with GoDaddy. That's pretty common.
Well, let's not even go with GoDaddy. If you onboard with Big X Media, you can buy your domain and your hosting through arcwebhosting.net, where you can acquire both your domain and the hosting package, and then set up your onboarding process with Big X Media because you already have the hosting. You'll have the domain name, and we'll get you rocking.
So what if somebody has a website already that they've built? Maybe they want you to look at migrating into your servers. What
We
is
can
that?
migrate, of course, everything we do on the backbone of WordPress. If they have an existing WordPress website somewhere else, I'm just going to tell you up front, most people use what's called shared hosting, relatively cheap, and I get it, but shared hosting doesn't provide your website the level of service that it needs and is required by Google standards. So what we typically do, if a person's got an existing website, we find out first, what do you like, what don't you like, what's working, what's not working. And we migrate the whole website over, and if it's a redesign on an existing website, we'll take care of that for you for a nominal fee. Depends on what is involved, whether it's just a straight brochure site, you got contact forms on there, you got any special kind of AI bots, is it an e-commerce store? No two websites are designed the same, nor are they priced the same. So it's, how much work is involved in it. If it's a simple redesign and we need to adjust your images down to the current web standards, whether it be WebP or AVIF, we'll take care of that for you as well. But we want to make sure everything's on a hosting platform that will deliver the speeds. Because one thing Google wants to see, especially on mobile devices, is how quickly your site loads. If you are not under 2 seconds on a mobile device, Google is going to spank your bottom, send you to the bottom of the dog pile, and you're just going to hope and wish for traffic. It's just that simple. As
That
far as
makes sense.
onboarding and stuff like that, after we get you done, then we do highly encourage everybody to join our maintenance program. which gives you 6 hours of development time a month through us, Big X Media, myself, any of our agents, to ensure everything's working exactly the way it needs to. We make sure all your plugins and everything else are up to date. If there's any conflicts, we take care of it, get it resolved, usually under 18 hours or less. So if you come to us and give us a shout out, send us an email, say, hey, my site's having problems. Man, you probably ain't more than a half hour in and something's resolved and got you on the right track, because I got a whole team of engineers. If it's something at the hosting level, I can get it mapped out in under 3 minutes and get you back running smoothly. And that's the name of the game. You don't want any hiccups with your website. So we try to make onboarding as simple as possible. We usually set up about a half-hour video call, review your website, find out what's working, what's not working. What we can do for you, and we're straight up with you. If we can, we can. If we can't, we'll tell you we can't. We don't play no games. And of course, the plus side to using Big X Media is everybody within our organization, not trying to be, I don't even want to sound racist, but everybody in our organization speaks fluent English, which is a huge plus for an American-based business. Nobody wants to call and talk to somebody that you can't understand. Granted, sometimes I can be hard to understand because I live in the South, so we'll just forgive that. I speak good, I guess we'll call it Southern English. But nonetheless, we're committed to American-based businesses to ensure that you are as successful as you want to be and can be online. We don't take any second chances when it comes to getting you propagated and upscaled in the Google search engine. Ask James himself what that looks like.
Yeah, I can definitely be your video testimonial on this one. 20, 30 times at least over the past 5 years, I've texted Greg and said, hey, I'm starting a new service. Can you write me a blog? And he does. And he does within like the first 2 hours, and it's already done. And a lot of times, if it's a small wording error, he has it fixed in like 15 minutes. Um, so the amount of communication that I've experienced has been the reason why we're here tonight. And I'm an AI developer, do cybersimcoder.ai. And there's a lot of people out there right now that think that they're going to go to a GPT interface or some sort of interface and hit build me a website and AI propagate a 90 and above Google ranking website. Now, that does not happen. I can tell you because I look at the back end code every day. You don't get SEO linked pages, and you don't get a lot of things that you get with the experience that Greg brings. It's a it's a template that shoots out of AI. Just so you know, there's a lot of people who's probably heard build an AI website in 15 seconds. Well, those websites, yeah, they'll be out there and they'll live and they'll look good, but they won't rank good, and that's different.
Yeah, and it's a sad state of affairs because you can go almost anywhere online, whether it's in Facebook, do a Google search, wherever, and you'll find these ads for, oh, get an AI powered website delivered to you in under a day, whatever, for $99 or $199. I mean, they're all across the web, but just like James said, here's the problem. Number one, it's only going to propagate based on the information you give to it. And then at that, it's going to be very generic at best. It's not going to be custom tailored to your specific niche. It might get close, but here's the problem. Okay, so you got this pretty website. Looks cool. You paid, let's say, $199 for it. But at the end of the day, and James has heard me say this 1,000 times, content is king. If you are not providing your website fresh and updated content on a weekly basis, if you were even able to achieve any kind of ranking, Google will see that nothing's changed and you will quickly lose your ground on the SEO positioning within a Google search. Plus, in addition to that, here's the other thing people don't think about. Google's crawlers, or their bots, that work from the SEO background in can detect a website that's been done completely with AI. Now, while they will permit some of that, if all you're doing is copy and pasting or having a bot generate a website for you on the side, you're just asking for a nightmare. And
Now, I
then
will say on that,
at the end of the day, you'll come to us and say, "Fix it."
that's right. And on that, I will say that my tools that I've built out will be releasing this week, and it's a big tool set. And
You
what I've learned is that you build your marketing plan and you build your primary customer and you build these back office understandings of what you're actually doing and why you're doing it before you ever build your website in the first place. So when it comes to AI, if you did throw out a cookie cutter website, you could potentially sit there and spend 6 hours and beef it up. But that's the whole point of outsourcing to an agency, is because that 6 hours could be spent on your P&L sheets or spent sending emails or
well, here's the the end of the day discussion. Do you want to spend all this time having to learn all this as far as AI and anything else, or would you rather spend more time collecting on invoices being sent to you from your customers? Because anybody's got a business, at the end of the day, that's the bottom line: is how much money is your business making? Don't get me wrong, I love AI, but depending on the tools you use, you have to train it. You have to know how to do what's referred to as prompt engineering to help propagate and generate the correct text for you. And even in that, you can't just copy and paste straight over to a website, because again, Google's going to see it. So, we utilize several tools along the way to help do that, and then convert all that text it provides us to deliver it in what's referred to as human readable content. There are several steps that Google looks at, different pieces to help get that. And give me just a moment. I want to dive into one of mine here.
on that note, I do want to ask a question. The frequently asked questions section
Uh huh.
with AI, because of the way I code it, it looks at your schema and it looks at your JSON and it looks at the code, and that's what I look at too. But what is it with this new ASO or something like that where it can ask a question and it answers a question? It's SEO plus something, like the ability to use a microphone and ask AI to look it up or
You can, depending on which, and most all the AI tools, if you have a paid subscription to it, and I ain't gonna speak for all of them, but the bigger ones, you can actually speak to the AI using a microphone instead of having to type it in, and almost like having a natural conversation. And you can keep building upon that conversation. Let me switch over here real quick. I need
yeah,
to
go ahead.
share my screen real quick. Let's see that one.
We're not seeing it yet.
It'll be there in
Um,
a second.
there
You
you
got
are.
it now? All right. So, not sure if y'all can see it because it's about as big as I can get it, but do you see where it says EEAT? That is experience, expertise, authoritiveness, and trustworthiness. That is what Google is looking for. So that's what you have to learn how to train your AI models around. Now, I use a lot of Chat GPT. I got a professional account through them. Use their paid version. I also use Grok and a couple others. I also use Google's Notebook LLM. But at the end of the day, what I do is I take that, and that which you've seen was just a portion of a complete text prompt that I use in ChatGPT. And I've trained it to ask me, when it all runs through its little dialogue, it'll ask me, what's the topic of the conversation? what's the audience you're looking to hit, the reach, the scope. That way it helps propagate it in um, semantically correct, especially for the schema.
Mm,
All the markup that's required, like your H1s, H2s, paragraphs. And then even at the end of that, I'm adding in frequently asked questions that are around the topic that I've given to an article. So I've met all of Google's hotspot criterias.
I
I've got
love
all
that.
the semantics in. I've got a frequently asked questions added in at the bottom. And it's like presto magic. But you can't go nilly willy with the AI without taking a little bit of time to learn how to do some engineering. And in Chat GPT, the great thing about Chat GPT on a paid account, you can create customized chatbots. So specific to an industry. I've got at least a dozen set up specifically for what we do at Big X Media that are designed to do specific things throughout the course of a website build. So I don't have to worry about going back in and double checking everything. And when I go and run it through Google, Google says, I love it. Ergo, we stay at the ranking that we're at on Google. But again, a lot of people just want to go in all nilly willy and start, they'll go into Chat GP and say, write me a 1,400 word article about this. Okay, fine. Where's the expansion on that though? And where's those, the EEAP T at on that? Because just again, copy and pasting it in there, Google's gonna see that and go, no go, Slim Shady. Try again.
I just created exactly what you're talking about for myself, and I'm following along, and all of the just because I'm a back end developer, you're a front end developer. We're we do the same things different ways, and I just do a lot more coding and a lot more of the software engineering, and then the delivery life cycle from testing, production, and more of a DevOps standpoint. I'm a pointy head. I
That's
like
all right. That's all right to be pointy heads. And the cool thing though is to be able to take whatever James produces, whether that might be an interactive chat bot for your website. Okay, and they're the biggest rage today, as well as some other tools that go a little bit further than that as far as an interactive AI bot even answer your calls. That's a whole chapter by itself. But just from a website view,
hmm
put an interactive chatbot on there, which and depending on how it's laid out to your business, can be very specific to help guide the end user to where you want them to be based on how they answer the questions that are propagated for them. It steers them. So you achieve that contact goal at the end of the day. That being said, me as the front end developer need to make sure that that script loads in such a way that your website doesn't take a hit from Google's page speed insights, because within those little scripts, and they're very cool, usually minimal, but the way that they load on the front end and how they're told to load can mean the difference between a website success or an utter failure, because so many people will just slap that code that maybe James gave you and say, "Oh, that's cool. I'll just dump it into a in my head section of my website." And of course, your bot will show up in the bottom, all decked out and prettied up. But the code's not is not loading correctly, thus affecting your load time, because Google has this wonderful thing in the background, page speed insights. It's time to first byte. It usually is labeled as, if any of you out there might be a little bit web techy. Time to first byte is crucial because that indicates how long does it take your website from the time someone types in the URL or clicks on the link to the time it's in full view on any device you're on, whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet, a desktop, what have you. And if it's not loading correctly on the mobile device, and Google looks at that first, Long gone are the days of scoring big on desktop. Desktop is okay, but really, let's get real. How many people are searching for things from their desktop? Not very many. Everybody's got a mobile phone. Everybody's pulling it out of their pocket, pulling up Chrome, Safari, Firefox, whatever their choice of browser is, and searching for the answer they're looking for. And if that answer doesn't come up quickly on your website, or if they see your website and click on the link and it doesn't load batshit crazy fast, they're not going to hang out. They're going to go someplace else. And that's bad news for you because that means you just lost a potential client.
And in my opinion, I've done a couple things that helped rank me on the AI side. Is one, I put all of my frequently asked questions that I could come up with in its training, and so it likes to throw out some of its information whenever you first talk to it, which helps with current current data schema and what your website's about. And another thing that I've done is I've taken a lot of these processes and already built the tool. So what you'll find is whenever I start showing my tools, this is just for you. When I start showing my tools, it will be obvious that all you have to do is take the data that I give you and then give that data to Greg, and you're going to have yourself a good website. It's going to be optimized, and Greg builds the pages. And you need a good website. It being a number one in your field website matters so much that I didn't sell my website when I sold my business. I kept my website, and I'm rebranding all my AI tools under my website name because Greg is that awesome.
Well, appreciate the hand cheers on that one. Certainly do our best to make sure everybody can be as successful as they want to be. But here's everything to think about as a business owner. And again, doesn't make a difference what your flavor is, what niche you're in, what you do online with your website. What is important is how do you handle your potential customers so they land on your website? Are you getting them to the place to where they're clicking on the magic button that brings up a form or interacting with a chatbot? How are you tracking that data?
Mm.
Because in today's world, data is money. And if you are not capitalizing on that, you are doing yourself a huge disfavor because that data will provide you vast amount of information about what customers are seeing, how they're interacting on your website, maybe things you might need to polish up on. But that's where we come into play because we help you manage that data and provide you with real-time data saying, hey, we see you're getting a lot of hits on this page. Maybe we need to pull something over on the front end to help mix those two together and get you more interactivity with customers that are visiting, like clicking on that call to action or that button or hitting the chat bot or a phone call, whatever it may be. But not only that, then after you collect the data, what do you do with it? Do you have a CRM? Without getting too technical into all that, it's a customer resource management service because you want to be able to move that data over to where, whether it's you or someone you employ, whoever, to be able to maintain and get in contact with the people that are reaching out to you. Because I promise you, if you don't touch base with these people within 24, 48 hours max,
Gone like good candy.
like the wind, and if
Mm.
for businesses here in Arkansas, y'all know Arkansas weather, how Mother Nature rolls, so does the web clients. I mean, you don't get in contact, you just thrown one on down the street to your competitor.
and it's only getting more competitive. The move is happening digital. So the foot stomp on what we were just talking about, GDPR regulation has a lot to do with that. The way your mail's formatted, the way you scan your data every year at least once to make sure that all of your backdoor holes are closed off for cybersecurity.
There's
Uh,
only a couple states currently that are really pounding on that door. I know California is one of them.
mm,
I believe Florida and Colorado. That's not a bad thing to have. All the websites you visit today usually got the little cookie consent banner at the footer, indicating this website uses cookies. Click OK or click here to view what all data that a website is collecting. Most generally, that's prominent on forms, email forms that are created on the website. Other things, if you have even the use of Google's analytics tag that you implement onto a website, even that collects data that you have to let your end user know about. Now, I'm not saying you have to plaster it on the front page, but you better have both a privacy page and a terms of use page that explains explicitly what data is being collected as soon as a person lands on your website. And you have to be able to provide a link for them to utilize to say, hey, I want you to remove any data you've collected on me. Not
see,
quite there yet, but
it's
within the
close.
next probably 30 years, that's going to be across the America, all 50 states, and you're going to have to comply with that. It's not a big deal. We can get that all set up for you, but you want to make sure you're covering your rear ends because I promise you,
Yeah.
in today's world, people that like to find websites that might not be doing this or that and the other like to file those little things called lawsuits, even though they may not have used your service, but for no other reason. They see your website and see that there's data being parsed and collected to which they have not consented to. Ergo, the little buttons that are by C's. Now, that being said, let me kind of switch channels just a little bit. We're talking about the little fly up boxes that say your website's using cookies. Please, 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 whether you do it yourself, whether you've hired someone to do it, whether you hire Big X Me to do it, do not ask us to create a fly up box that hits a person in the face in 2 seconds asking for their email address and phone number. Me personally, when I see that first before I see anything else, I'm out. I'll decide when I'm ready to give you my information for you to continue on, but it's not going to be instantaneously and in your face. And not only that, Google sees it, and that's also a huge no, no.
Mm. And I know best practice, at least in my experience, has been on your root domain, your .com domain. You have that page where somebody lands on, typically that would collect an email address. And then up under there, if you have any apps or any blogs or any, those would be subdomains. And
Well, you
that way,
you have to do it with the blog, but particularly in anything that's collecting an email address and a phone number, most generally a form of any kind. I prefer to attach them to a button that says click here to be contacted or click here to learn more, which will then open that up in a pop up, but they done it at their choosing.
it's a call to action. It
It's a
still
call to
meets
action.
it meets it.
It's not an instant in your face because we can do what's called a on page load, on page scroll, on exit intent. Like if it detects a person's fixing to leave your website, boom, you get smacked in the face. I don't like them. I just don't. Because I'm a firm believer, if I didn't give you enough information on your visit to make you convinced of what we can do for you, what's me slapping up, hey, wait a second, did you see this? What difference is that going to make to you? Probably nothing. You'll X out of it, move along. That's what everybody else does. So I don't even like to put them on a website. It's different if you got a big e-commerce store, maybe, and you're so like t-shirts, hats, mugs, custom products, whatever. And maybe you're using it as to say, hey, did you see that we're offering this product with a 15% discount? That's entirely different. But when you're dealing with just a static website that caters to a business, it is not necessary to generate all those in your face.
Yeah, lead forms. Yep, capturing data. It's the right thing to do at the right time. It's most definitely the right thing to do. You don't want to lose it. There's every scenario you can imagine that you can run an automation for. If somebody comes and leaves, somebody goes to your hottest website that you're tracking, you've got eyeballs on it, and they try to come in there and look around and get out of there. There should be an email. There should be a pop up on their way out. There should be the right time for the right reason. Uh, Animation and automation, and making sure that people know that at least you know they're there.
It's
And
finding that happy balance.
yeah,
You don't want it there so quick that you make them mad and they leave automatically. But at the same time, you want to give them kind of enough time. And again, this comes with reviewing the data in Google Analytics to find out how much time a person is spending on your site versus the time they leave, and then finding that happy medium place to make that pop up generate on an exit intent.
and that's the stuff Greg does well. He's a research and analyst king, in my opinion. So I hope I gave a good introduction to Big X Media tonight and give him the props he deserves. It's been 30 minutes, and I always value somebody's time. So I'm gonna ask you: is there anything you'd like to say about any kind of current promotions, and you want to just shout out your boss and say he's awesome?
Well, my boss is awesome. So, most of our websites, I'm just going to shoot up straight because I'm a firm believer in being upfront. I don't like anything to come as a hidden secret. Most of our website, whether it's a redesign or a new site, are starting around $800 and up, depending on the complexity. Now, we do have some payment options where you pay 50% up front to start your project. Then, once it's launched live to your domain name, before it's launched live, we collect the other 50%. And we're not putting you on no time frame like, oh my God, you start your project with us tomorrow. We expect to have this done in 30 days and paid out. No, look, we get it, man. Financial times are kind of rough for everybody right now. We understand that. But here's something to think about. I understand the cost of doing this can be or seem significant for some. But ask yourself this: what is your business worth to you? When you take your business and value it, the spending a little bit more money to get something done that'll deliver results that will substantially increase your income is well justified. But if you can't justify that, then maybe you might want to ask yourself, do you really need to be in business? And I know that sounds harsh, but it is the reality because I get people come to me all day long, be like, hey, man, I got a business. Can you do my website for $150, $250? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you, don't waste my time. I'm going to send y'all down the road to Wix, somebody else, whatever. I won't touch them because the level of effort that we put into the process in designing you something that will, again, get your business elevated and help you generate more income, just the time we
Hmm.
put into that is well in excess of what we're going to charge you. I can guarantee it. If I build you hourly, it's $85 an hour. And some of these
That's
projects
fair.
are
That's a
30 to
fair price.
50, are 30 to 50 hours long.
Mm.
Do the math.
Hmm.
But again, we're trying to make it fair for everybody to get in the game, starting at 800 and up. Again, that's for, standard brochure site. Something else, before James cuts me off, to think about is web accessibility. What is web accessibility? So, there are people out there, believe it or not, that use their keyboard to navigate websites because they can't see it. So they rely on a reader that reads to them as they navigate with the keyboard to tell them what exactly it is where they're at, what they're seeing without seeing. The other one deals with colors. Man, if I could tell you the amount of website I've seen with color palettes on them, I'd be like, I can't read it. And I have phenomenal website. I can't imagine how someone who wears glasses or have color impairments can read it. And trust me, that's another big issue Google looks at. It's there are four separate scores when you go to Google PageSpeed Insights. One is time to load, the other one is accessibility, overall load times, and are the images in the correct formats. And of course, something that nobody ever thinks about is loading Google fonts
Fonts.
locally.
Yes, sir.
Because a website, if you're using any kind of, for those of you who may have dabbled with this, using any kind of page builder, when you get down to choosing your heading fonts, your body fonts, and fonts for this, fonts for that, that's making an API call over to Google CDN. So that's another element that has to load in. And as sad as it is, even though it's Google's, it brings your website speed down. Thus, the better way to approach that is picking two, maybe three fonts tops. Two is preferred. One for headings, the other one for your body text. But have them load locally, not from Google CDN server. Otherwise, you're just going to get blasted in the rear end. When you look at your page speed insights, Google's going to tell you, it's like, oh, your page is slow because you decided to use the built in Google fonts. But what people don't know, even though you chose a specific one, it's not just loading the specific one, it's loading every flipping font in Google's font families. So just don't do it.
And if I would advise that if somebody was the one that was going to be choosing those two fonts, do a quick Google search because there are paired fonts that Google prefers, and choose a pair. But
If you go to, and there's a website for that, for business fonts that Google really approves of, it's called fontpairing.com
mm,
and gives you the recommendations for the top font faces that exist. The other thing, while we're on the topic of fonts, for those of you who know or understand fonts, typical font format is TTF, which is True Typeface. However, it is not an optimized font. What you want to do is download the TTF and convert it to a WOFF, WOFF, which reduces that font size significantly because you want to make sure A, in your font, because within every font, then you got several classifications, which goes from the weight, whether it's italicized, bold, regular, what have you. Make sure you're only using the fonts that you need, not the whole font family.
that's a good piece of advice. Fonts will get you. It's the littlest things. And that's what I can't foot stop enough. That's the reason why we're here because I know a handful right now who's asked me to help them build a website because I have hosting, but I have nothing like Greg has. I don't host other people's websites either. I just have a whole bunch of domain names and build websites all the time for code and test my code amongst API calls and I do the analytics like Greg does to make sure that sites are loading good and things aren't messing things up. Testing on the DevOps side, but the idea of having a website that's optimized by somebody who really knows what they're doing is scalable. Think about 5 years down the road, if your business takes off, you may be like me 5 years down the road and scaling your business and your operations into a whole other complete genre of business, but it's off of the same platform. You want to have longevity. You want to have somebody who knows how to keep up with these things day after day and who actually administers your website for you, not just hosts it for you. They administer it. That's Greg. He actually does things like that. It's different when somebody actually gets in and updates your plugins and looks at your website every week to see if you have new content and takes the time to look at every single detail to make sure you're successful. That's a different level. So that's what I would like to end with is Big X Media is a different level. Check them out. And James Collins here again, and Greg Hyatt will be on hopefully again soon talking about this kind of same subject, different way.
Absolutely. Before you end us here, real quick, James, just a quick note for people. Along with the website, I want everybody to take time to investigate maybe starting a YouTube channel. You're like, oh my God, why would I want to do that? Keep in mind, Google search is great, but the next largest search engine in the world is YouTube.
Mm.
How many times people get on YouTube looking for an answer to this, look for an answer to that? What if you've created that video that answers that question, and in your video description is a link back to your website? Don't take it for something that, oh, it'll never make a difference in your business, because I promise you, executed correctly, it will. Now, on the plus side, we have a whole team at Big X Media. If that's your game, we can help you roll down that street, make sure you're doing things the correct way, because I promise you, it is a learning experience. It's like learning anything new. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to be willing to get in and get dirty. But once you get the basics down and start executing on them, it will not take you long to see the value in having some YouTube content to put on your website, embed it, and just sit back and watch the magic happen.
I agree with that. I do. I know that a lot of the crawlers these days are crawling videos too and getting briefs of what you
Well,
talked
stop.
about. And
I mean, stop and think about it. If you do a Google search in Chrome, you depending on how you search, usually the first 4 to 5 links that propagate first are YouTube videos that answer that question.
mm-hmm,
Before you begin to even see any websites addressing it, you're getting that YouTube. If it sniffs out there's YouTube content to answer that question, that's what you're going to see first.
and that's where having a website link in the description, littlest things, they help.
Well, that the
Longevity.
fact you got that cross back and forth linking, so you
Hmm.
got YouTube linked out on your website. You got your website pulling in YouTube data. You got your website pasted into your YouTube description for that particular video. I mean, it's a win-win situation.
Hey, I love win-win situations. On that note, it was a win-win tonight. Thank you for joining me, Greg. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Everybody have a good one.
All righty, let's go ahead and end this out. And would you like to go ahead and
We can
claim
chit chat.
that we're going to do this again? Maybe
Absolutely.
maybe next week.
Maybe
And
next week, whenever James rings my bell and says, "Hey, let's do this again," well, I'll be here for James and for you, and we'll dive in and answer any questions you might have for us.
excellent. Thanks, Greg.